Well, now that we've seen what a basic table looks and works like, let's try out some CSS with it. Between the contents of the table and the table itself, we've actually got a lot of things we can style. Now, let's go back to our document, and the first thing I want to do is get rid of that border attribute that we set up before. It doesn't look so great, and there's a lot more we can do with CSS. So I'm just going to remove that attribute here, and I'd like to set up a couple of different style rules. Now, we've already got a style tag set up for us up here, so all we have to do is create some selectors and rules. And the very first one that I'm going to create is for the table itself. So I'll just put in here a rule for the table tag. Of course, we need open braces for our rules, and I'll go down a couple lines and put in the close brace. And the first style rule I'd like to add will set up a border for our table. What's different about CSS is that it actually has a lot of different properties, whereas the table just has one border attribute. For instance, if we wanted to control the thickness of the border, we would use the border width property. That's border dash width, and we can use any kind of measurement setting to set this up. So I'll set it up with a nice thick 2-pixel border. Now, if we want to specify the type of line that's drawn, we can use the border dash style property. And here I have a choice of things like solid or dotted lines. I'll set this one to solid. And finally, we have a choice of the border color. And we can use normal hexadecimal color designations for this. So let me set ours to red. Of course, that's £, FF for red, 00 for green, and 00 for blue. Now let's save our changes. And there we can see that our border's been replaced with our nice thick 2-pixel red line. Now there's actually more to the properties than what we've seen so far. If you'll notice, each one of those border properties set up a line around the entire perimeter. But if we look close at the properties available to us, we'll find that we can actually set separate lines for each side of the table, top, bottom, and left and right. Now let's go back and modify our code to do that. First of all, I'll just add in here border dash top. Now you notice I'm just kind of sliding that in for width. I can do the same for style, and I can do the same for color. As you would guess, there's a border left width style and color, there's a border right width style and color, and there's a border bottom width style and color. So we can actually set up each one of these lines separately. I'm going to save my changes, and let's see how that affects our page. We'll refresh, and now you can see that the only line that's showing is the border up along the top. Now, in addition to being able to split apart these properties into separate elements, there's also a way to consolidate it together so you don't have to type as much. And generally, we will refer to that as a shorthand property. Let's set one up here. I'll take all the rules that we've built, and I'll just get rid of them, and we'll replace them with one single property called just border. Now, it starts out nice and easy, but the value for this one is a little complex. The border property actually has several values, and we're just going to set them all at once. The first property would be the width, and that would be 2 pixels if I want to match what we had before. We'd follow that by the line type, which in this case we want solid. And the last value would be the color. And I'll just change that to blue for this time. I'll type in £, 00 for red, 00 for green, and FF for blue. Now with that one property setting, we should be able to set up the entire table. So let's save our changes. And let's go back out to our document and take a look. Here we can see a 2-pixel blue line surrounding the whole thing, and that's created with just one style rule instead of 3. Of course, we'll be seeing more of shorthand rules as we move through the rest of the chapters, but for now I want to take a look at something else. When we set up the border on our table, all we got was the border around the outside of the table. But our original border attribute had grid lines on the inside. Well, that's because the table tag is not the only tag that we can apply a border to. We can apply a border to TD tags inside the table as well. Let's go back and change that. I can change my table style selector up here to a group selector simply by adding a comma and then adding on some more tags. I'll put in the TD tag here. We'll save our changes and see how that looks. Now you can see each one of my table data elements has a border around it as well. And now we're getting something that looks a little bit more like the original border we saw. Notice we don't have a border on the top tags, and that's because those aren't TD tags or table tags. Those are TH tags, remember, for our header. So we can add them in as well. I'll just go back and add a comma at the end of TD and tack TH onto the end of the list. Now my selector will hit all three. We can save changes, and we'll go back and see that we have borders now on all the elements. Now, of course, each one of these TDs can have a separate top, bottom, left, and right setting, as well as a separate width, style, and color property. And if you don't like the look of the double lines, there's a special property that can fix that. Let me go back to our document. And inside the table selector, let's just add another style rule. In this case, I'm going to use the border-collapse property. And I'll set it to a value of collapse. When we save our changes and go back and take a look at our document, you can see that it has collapsed all those separate borders into a simple grid system. While we're still working on things like the border, we can also change things like the size of a table. By default, tables will expand to fit whatever you put in them, but we can also set a specific width and height if we wanted to have it a certain size. So let's try that out. I'll just go back to my document, and up in the style tags, we already have a table selector, but that one's a combination selector setting designs for table, TD, and TH tags. So I'll just add one above that that's for the table tag only. We'll add in our braces for the rule. And for this one, we'll just simply set the width property. I'll set it to about 500 pixels because that should be a little bit bigger than what it is right now. We'll save our changes, and we'll go back out and see what our table looks like. You can see that now it's stretched out a little bit, so there's a little bit more room for everything inside. But of course, the next thing we're going to work on is a little bit of text alignment. The table tag is a container tag, so we can apply text styles to it, and those will be applied to any text that's inside the tags. To try this out, let's just try a little center alignment. I'll go back to my document, and inside the table selector, I'll add another style rule. This time, I'm going to use the text align property. Of course, this is the same property we used on headings and paragraphs. We're just using it on a table this time. I'll set it to center. We'll save our changes, go back and take a look at our page, and we should see that all the text, including the headers and the row at the bottom, are all now center aligned. And everything's looking a little bit nicer. Now I'd like to even things out a bit. We already set a width on the table that expanded it to 500 pixels, but we can also set widths and heights on individual table cells. Now, since this is a grid, you generally only have to set the width on one item in the column in order to get it to set up. So let's try that. I would like to have a nice even distribution between the different tables. You can see that the average rain column is getting a little bit more space because we have more text up here at the top. Well, I'll just go back to our document, and we'll set up a style for TDs. I'll just go down below the table group setting, add in a TD selector, and of course our braces for the CSS rules. And we'll just go in here and again use the same width property. We don't have to use pixel measurements for everything. And here's where I'd like to try out some percent measurements. I want each one of the table cells to represent 25% of the available width. It'll take the width of the table and divide it up into 4 equal parts. And this will allow us to get that even spacing that we're looking for. Let's save that change, and we'll see how that looks. Now you can see all of my columns have evened out, and my table is looking even cleaner. Now I've just got a couple of additional properties that I want to try out that affect the spacing of my table and its position on the page. The first one is padding. We can add padding to the elements inside of a table, and it basically just pushes them apart from each other a little bit to add a little bit more space and air. I'll go back to my TD selector here where we set up the 25% width, and I'll just go in and add a little bit of padding. Very similar to the border setting that we saw before, you can set padding just on the top, bottom, left, or right. And you would do that by using a padding-left, padding-right, padding-top, and padding-bottom. But if you just use the padding property by itself, you can set up a single measurement that will be used to provide padding all the way around the cell. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll set up 5 pixels. We'll save that change and preview it on the page. Now you can see there's a 5 pixel buffer around every one of the cells. Some cells don't need it. For instance, on the left and right hand sides, we don't see any change at all. but we do see changes in the TD cells from the top and bottom. I'll also point out that our TH cells didn't change at all, because remember, we're only changing the setting on a TD. Now, the other property that I wanted to show affects the position of the table on the whole page, and that's margins. When you're setting up a margin property, you can use the similar property measurements that we saw before. We can use pixels, we can use percentages, and we can set things up, but we also have one additional property setting. In this case, I don't want to set a pixel value because I'll be moving the table a fixed amount from either the left or right or top or bottom of the screen. What I'd like to do is set up an auto measurement, and that way the program will automatically place the table and set up the measurement for each one of the margins that we set. I'm going to go over to the table selector, and we're just going to add in a margin property. And to get this automatic alignment that I'm talking about, I'm going to use auto for the setting. By setting the margin this way, again, margin has top, left, right, and bottom values that you can set independently. By setting one value, I'm basically setting on all four at once. So let's save our changes once again. We'll go out and take a look at our table, and when I refresh, you can see that now the table is placed in the center of the page. And since we're auto setting both right and left margins, even if I move the page size, you can see that it stays centered up.